Hello, I'm Liselle Sambury. I'm a traditionally published author, and welcome to this video all about Plottr. So I'm going to do a little quick backstory. So how I discovered this program is that I was actually on Instagram and I saw someone had posted a screenshot of like a writing kind of software that I'd never seen, and I asked them about it and they said, oh, it's this thing called Plottr. And so I looked it up. And so what Plottr is it is a software that essentially lets you have a visual plotting interface so you can visually see all your plot points and move them around. It also has some story Bible, series Bible features, so you can have character cards and like a whole a database of your characters, also places in the story. There are tagging features and things like that within it. And what I was most interested in personally was being able to have a way to visually represent the different layers of my stories, because the way that I did it beforehand was that I would go in Scrivener and I would just kind of like bullet point write out everything that was going to happen in the chapter. But then as I added more layers such as subplots and red herrings and like hints that I had to drop in the book, I had to keep layering that into what I had already planned, and it was just kind of hard to keep track of everything. And so I thought this would be helpful for that, and so that is why I ended up deciding to try it out. So I decided this on my own. This is not sponsored. Plottr was not involved in any of this, but I decided to try it out. So it does have a free trial available. Because I was confused about the free trial and things, I actually just ended up buying it. So I bought the annual subscription, which is something like, I believe, $25 US. You can also buy a lifetime subscription, which I believe is like $99 US, but I decided to just do the 1 year to try it out and see how it goes. But you can do a free trial, so don't be like me, actually properly do things with the free trial. So that was, so that's really what Plottr is. And so what I'm going to be doing in this video is that I'm going to be sharing with you a template. So I'm going to do a screen share of the Plottr interface. I'm going to show you a template that I made to plot my stories, and then I'm going to show you a real story that I have, and how I plotted it and how I worked on it and how I use the interface and all the features that I made use of so that you can visually see it, because I do think that's helpful about programs and reviews, for you to be able to get a visual idea of what the interface looks like and how you might use it. And then after all of that, I will do my more formal review. So I'll share some pros, I'll share some cons, and I will share who I would recommend this for and who I might not recommend this for. And so I have timestamps for all of that below. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started, and you'll jump in and you will see past Liselle, who will take you through the Plottr interface. Hello and welcome to the Plottr interface. So sorry if I'm a little bright over here. It's very sunny today and I'm trying to deal with it. But this is what you'll see when you open Plottr. So what I want to do right now is I'm just going to show you stuff on the Plottr interface. So I'm going to show you some of the features. I'm going to show you the template that I created to work off of for my projects. And then I'm going to show you the actual plotting of a full project, because I actually plotted I replotted Bear Hunt, which is my 2024 novel, using Plottr, and so I want to show you what that actually looks like. However, once I get into that portion, I am going to blur the screen, so obviously you cannot see what I've actually written there, because it's for a project that's going to be published, but I can at least kind of show you the bits and pieces of it, and you can see how it might be arranged for a real project. And so that's why I want to show you that. So starting right now, the dog is coming in because of course, starting right now. So here is the regular Plottr interface. So when you open it, you can either create a blank project, you can create from a template, you can open an existing file. It also shows your recent projects, so you can see what I've been working on recently. And then you have things like backups and settings and all that stuff. So what I think most people will be interested in is the create from template. So these are two templates that I've made using Save the Cat Beats and things like that. For whatever reason, and this is strange to me, it doesn't actually have Save the Cat on here, but it has a bunch of other beat sheets, which like kind of makes me think that maybe somehow they weren't allowed to put the Save the Cat beat sheet on here. But anyway, it has all sorts of like beat sheets here. Hero's Journey, they have a horror beat sheet, which I didn't use even though I'm writing a horror because I'm stuck in my ways. They have a romance beat sheet. They also have the beat sheet from Romancing the Beat, which is a book that's by Gwen Hayes, which I have used that structure before with helping me plot a romance. Snowflake method, take off your pants, 3-act structure, all sorts of stuff it has here. And so if you create a new project from this, it'll like basically open up a template for you. But I've found that even when you make your own template, I found that some things don't carry over. So I'm going to show you later. I have a series of tags that I use, and those tags didn't carry over into the template. So then when I did a template, it wasn't actually carrying over everything I wanted. So the method that I've been using is I made a template file, and then I duplicate that file and I start it up as a new file, and that's how I work on my projects. So that's how I've been using it. So it took me a little bit to figure that out, but I figured that out now, so you don't have to go through that. So I'm going to show you the template I made over here. Okay, so this is the template I made. So this is for a book that's going to be 75,000 words in total, where each chapter is like 2,000 words. I've put space for a prologue here. I won't always have a prologue. In fact, I usually don't do prologues for like, actually, I don't know. These last 2 books I've done, it seems weird. One is like actually a prologue, I would call it that. But the other one is just like a little like first chapter thing sprinkling. But anyway, I digress. So how I've set this up. Actually, let me go into this first tab here, which is projects. So this is where you'll put your projects. So you have your series and you have your books. It does organize all of them by series by default, which is fine. This book I'm doing is a standalone. So I just went in here. Oh, well, this is the template. Sorry, I'm showing you the template right now. So I just did book 1 because it's a template. So that's how it is. You could add book 2, book 3, book 4, all of that. And so this timeline, this is where, so up top, I have the chapters. Some of these templates, what they have up top are beats. So like, you know, in a Save the Cat beat sheet, things like that, you would have beats. So it would say B1, B2, B3. But I have chapters because that's how I like to organize things. And then over here, you have, these are called plot lines is what they're calling them. So I have one for my main POV, and where what I'll put here will be these scene cards. They've been calling them scene cards. I don't necessarily use them to represent scenes, but you can do it like that, or you cannot do it like that. And so, for example, this next one, I have main POV Save the Cat. So this is where I'm going to fill out all my Save the Cat beats. And I've arranged these based on the percentages so that they're in the right spots. So I know, okay, this is the spot where we're doing break into 2B story and the start of fun and games. This is the start of the catalyst and the debate, start of the opening image. This is the midpoint, etc. And you'll see that when I hover over each of these, you'll see a little description in there. This is because I made this template of all the Save the Cat beats, and I put in all of my notes that I use for the Save the Cat beats for plotting. And so I made that little template, and so that's what I'm putting in here. So that's why all these are already like populated this way. And so for this one, I just spread them out as needed. I have other POVs in case I had more of them. And I didn't spread these out the same way because depending on how the POV, depending on how the POV is structured, that's not necessarily going to be the case that like it's going to be in those positions. So I left them alone. With my B plot, I put some little, like, these are just like markers that I put to help me. And then I also have a spot for subplots, subplot 1, 2, 3, and I have a spot for red herrings 1, 2, 3, because I almost always in all of my books have some sort of mystery element, and so it just made sense to me to have a red herring thing in there. So that's what that is. I'm not going to have this template available like for download or anything. I thought about it, but then all the Save the Cat beads are just like, they're just like my personal notes. They're not like exact of Save the Cat, and I wouldn't want to like put them exact and then send them out, because, you know, you should probably like to support the author and like actually buy and read Jessica Brody's book or borrow it from the library or what have you. So that's why I'm not going to make the template available, but you can at least like see how everything is and how I have it arranged. And you can find these beads online also, which I guess is like, maybe I don't need to be so precious about it, but I just decided that I wouldn't. So that's what that is. So now that I've had all these things arranged, so for example, if the catalyst of the story was that, I don't know, the main character's brother got hit by a bus. So I know the catalyst is supposed to be up here. So I might write it in here. I might write MC gets hit, MC's brother hit by bus. I might write it in there. And I could leave it in there, but I would probably go in here and I would probably write MC's brother hit by bus. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Hit by bus. And then here I would put the details of the chapter. So wakes up and feels something is wrong, goes out and crowd by house, realizes her brother was hit. And so that's basically how I would use this. So this is what's going to happen in the chapter. And I know that the catalyst is supposed to happen here, so I know that that's what's going to happen in the chapter. And so that's kind of how I've been organizing these things. And so then in your outline, so let's see, that was chapter 3. I know the numbering is weird. It's weird here, but it's fine here. I don't know why. So anyway, when I go to write chapter 3 and I look at my outline, I can see the main character's brother hit by bus. I can see all the stuff I put there, and I can also see all the stuff from all the other plot lines I have after it. So what I have in that same chapter, that's under main POV Save the Cat beat. So I can see the Save the Cat beat. I can see if there was something from POV 2 that was also a catalyst, something from POV 3 that was also a catalyst, etc., etc. So everything that's in that line, I can see now in that single chapter view. And so that's kind of what the outline is doing. You also have different views of the timeline. So you can see it like larger with bigger boxes if you want. So now they're much bigger and you can still see everything when you hover, or you can see smaller boxes, which I also really like this view, and you can see all the little boxes laid out. And again, when you roll over, you can see everything there. So that's that. They also have a section for notes. I didn't really use this, so I'm not going to say much about it. And then they have a section for characters. So in this character section, you can do a new one or you can use a template. So they have some templates here made for you. I have a template here, which is my main character template. I did a video about creating compelling characters where I talked about using this template. So I'll have that linked in the description below. So I just made a template for this so that, you know, I can choose this. And now my main character template is right here. So I can do a new character and I can write out all of their stuff and I can put it all down here. I can categorize them. So I put like a main character, a supporting character, or other is what I have in this file. I can add a character thumbnail, so their image. And I can also tag what book they're in. So I can say they're in this book in the series so that I can later filter by series books if I want to. So I'll go ahead and delete that. And then there is the places section over here as well. So you can put places the same way as characters. And then I want to show you this tagging section. So this is how I've set up my tags. So I have tags for all the Save the Cat beats. I have tags for the acts. I have tags for any POVs that I'm going to be using. And I have tags for twists, reversals, and dangers. This is something from Mastering Suspense. I'll link that craft book here, but it talks about having more fast-paced stories and marking how many twists and reversals and moments of danger you have to help you mark pacing and to like create more fast-paced stories, things like that. And so I have these here so that I can mark different chapters, and I'll show you that more when I actually show you my actual story outline. So that is everything that's in there. And then again, when you go to the timeline, for example, this, you can add all those tags. So all the tags are here. So I can take this POV1, Act 1, it's the catalyst, and like maybe something dangerous happens here. And so I can tag it on that. I can also tag whatever characters are in this scene, and I can tag any places that are in the scene if I want. And so I'll close that, and then when I hover over it, I can see those tags very easily. And so I do the Save the Cat tags here because I set it up so that, you know, once I'm done planning all my chapters, I don't need to have this Save the Cat thing up top anymore, and I can put it to the bottom. But then, you know, if I decided I wanted to just see stuff from Act 1, I would be able to easily filter that. And again, I will show you that in the actual, when I switch over to a real project. So I'm just gonna delete that. So I have this, I can see it, but when you will be seeing it, you will be seeing a blurred version of it. But I'll just kind of describe what I've got going here. So all the plot lines I have here. So I have the main plot line. I have this is a second POV. This is the B plot. This is hints for the real culprit of the story. This is one subplot. This is a second subplot. This is a third subplot. This is 1 red herring, 2 red herring, 3 red herring, 4 red herring. And these are my Save the Cat beats that I used to originally plan. I put them at the bottom just so that I can kind of skip over them. That's one of the limitations of Plottr, is that you can't hide any of these plot lines. You can just kind of, you can do filtering. So you could maybe tag them all as something. If you wanted them to hide, you could like maybe tag them as hide, and then you could filter to show everything but hide, but I just couldn't be bothered. So I just put it right at the bottom there. So yeah, there are a lot of plot lines in here. And what I've done essentially, so you can see, well, you can see it is blurry, but you can see, so on each chapter, I have this description of what's happening in the chapter. So I have all these chapters planned, but I also have things that are underneath them. So I'm going to actually switch to the smaller view, because I think this will help give an understanding of the whole breadth, and also then I have to blur less, so it's helpful. So you can see what I really love about Plottr is I have a view now of everything that's going on. So with my subplots, I like to, you know, I mostly start them around the fun and games, and then I like to be able to kind of wrap up half of them before the midpoint, and then have the other half continue after the midpoint. And so what is helpful here is that I can see, so with this subplot, I can see this goes all the way to chapter 31. This subplot just goes a little bit to chapter 12. I know chapter 19 is the midpoint. And so I can see this subplot goes past the midpoint. This is the midpoint, right? Yeah, this subplot goes past the midpoint. This subplot ends before the midpoint. This one goes past the midpoint. This one ends before the midpoint. So I can
visually see that half of my subplots are ending before the midpoint, just like I want them to. And I can also see the spread of them. So I can make sure I'm not ending multiple subplots at the exact same time. They're being spread out over time. And I find that to be really helpful, because then I could see a gap if I was like if this subplot also ended here, I could be like, okay, maybe I'll make this go a couple more chapters just so I can get up against the midpoint. And then it's the same with my red herrings. I'm a little bit more loose with those ones, but I can see where they're ending and things like that. These ones actually are ending around the same spot, but it makes sense because there's an event that happens there that would kind of knock off both of them. But I can see kind of the ups and downs of where these are happening. And I could see if I thought it was too sparse. So for example, this red herring has like the least little mentions. And I could be like, actually, do I want to add maybe one more mention in here because there's kind of a bigger gap here? Maybe I want to add it in there or something like that. Or maybe I want to have a red, I want to like make this one go a little bit farther since these three are ending around here. Like I could see it all and I could play with it that way, which I really, really like about being able to see this view and being able to look at it on Plottr. And of course, all this stuff you can drag and drop, which is really helpful and handy. So you can also move these whole things over. So I'm actually going to move, which one is a good one? Let's do this one. So I can move this one right underneath the plot. And so so in chapter 2, this is like a first day of school scene. So in the main plot, I've written out what's supposed to happen in that chapter. But I know there's a character that also is introduced in that chapter, and there's a subplot about them having a secret. And so because of that subplot, this character that's introduced, I, underneath this little plot line where I have subplot, I basically write down what I could do to hint at the fact that this is the secret that they have, and that's part of a subplot. So I might write, they do this suspicious thing, or like they act really shady, or they do this. And then I might also have a red herring for that character that like they're the murderer. So I'm like, okay, what's something suspicious they could do that's related to the red herring that could make them look like the murderer in this scene? And I'll write those all in the same row so that when I go to the outline to plot this chapter, I know, okay, this is what's going to happen in the chapter. This is the meat of the chapter, but I also have to make sure this character does this suspicious thing for the plot line. I also have to make sure the suspicious thing they do could make them look like the murderer for the red herring. And so before, the way I used to plot things is I used to just like try and fit all of those in that one main plot note that I had in my outline. But what happened is then when I was looking at different chapters, I couldn't see the whole breadth of the subplot that I was planning. And so it was harder to know where to put all those little hints. Versus now in Plottr, I have a separate plot line that's dedicated just to that subplot. And I can add in all my scene cards that show these are all my little hints. And these are all the places I need to add things to make sure that this subplot is coming together. And so I know kind of looking at it, it can seem really intense, which like you don't need to do it like this, but I'm just showing that like this is how I ended up setting it up and this is what works for me. And it was really helpful in that way because I could map out all of those hints. And even in the case of like the B plot character, which is down here, you know, I can like write down interactions that they're having with the main character, and I can develop that whole subplot independently, but like alongside the main plot. And then I can see everything separately as well. And so then it's really helpful because when I go to the outline section, for example, let's pick chapter 12, let's say. So chapter 12, so I can see, or actually it's chapter 11 because of the prologue, or is it chapter 12? It's chapter 12. It's chapter 11 because of the prologue. Oh my gosh. Is it? Yes, it's chapter 11. I'm sorry. But anyway, so I can see in the main plot all the things that I have to do. This one, it's a hint of who the real murderer is. So I have to incorporate their bit. And then I also have a subplot that's going to come up in this one. I also need to make sure I do that bit. And then I also have a red herring that's going to come in this chapter. So I have to make sure I do that bit. And there's actually one more red herring in this chapter. So I have to make sure I do that bit as well, which I think could maybe seem overwhelming. But for me, it's really helpful because I would have just shoved that all in the main plot anyway. But now I can see. And when I look at that note, I know the purpose of that note. The purpose is X red herring or this red herring or whatnot and what have you. And it's planned out really meticulously. And then it's helpful for me in revision, even going back, because I can check the chapter and be like, did I mention all these things that I was supposed to mention, or did I miss anything? And so that's what I really, really like about Plottr. And I haven't put in all the characters and places for everything just because I haven't written the chapters yet. So I'm not really sure who might end up jumping in there when I do it. But I think when I do revisions, I'll make sure to put in those details, because then this chapter outline will become a lot more of a kind of chapter summary. So the note section, as I said, I didn't use. And then I have my character section here. I've blurred out a bit of this bit, so you can't see the details I'm putting about the characters. But I have the characters on the side here. So it's organizing them by the categories. So I have my main character, I have supporting characters, I have minor characters, and I have passing mentions, which are like, I mentioned the character once, but I want to be aware they exist. So, and then I've like put their little pictures and things like that. And of course, this is a standalone, so they're all in the same book. But I could filter if I just wanted to see the main and supporting characters, then now that's the only characters that I'm looking at based on that filter. And so I don't have to worry about that. And of course, if you click into any of them, you can see all the details of their stuff. So I can see all the character sheet and things like that. So I also put their age in brackets. It didn't prompt me to do that. I just thought that would be smart to put it beside their name so I can keep track of their ages and things like that. So that is the character sheet. The places one I did very just basic. I will have to at some point think about what these places will look like. So I probably should fill that out more before I get drafting. So maybe that's something I'll do next week, kind of casually, but I just kind of filled them out basically. And then I have my tags here, which are the same tags I showed you before, except that, I have tags for the two POVs and I actually put the names in there. And I'll go to the timeline just so I can show you some of the filtering effects that I've been taking use of or using. So I tagged each of the chapters, so they're all tagged. So for example, I can go to the filter and I can decide I just want to see the ones that are from this POV. And you'll see when I go back to it up on here, it has blurred out all the ones that are not from that POV. I just did the tagging in the main plot section. I could have done it everywhere, but it didn't seem to have a point. And I really just wanted to see it here. So that's why I did it like that. And then what I really like is for pacing reasons, those TRDs that I mentioned, you may have heard me call them turds in a previous vlog. So the twists, the dangers, or reversals. For pacing, I need to have those happen with a fair amount of frequency to keep the story fast paced. So I can filter by those and then I can see them all. So I would probably go onto the small view just because I could see it a little bit better. And so I can see across the board, where I'm having those things happen. And so for me, this is definitely frequent enough. I just need to have it happening at least every 5 chapters. So at a glance, I can look and see, okay, it's happening at least every 5 chapters. So I don't have to worry about pacing. This is kind of the longest gap. So this one that I put here didn't used to be there. That didn't used to be marked as a TRD, but I could visually see that there was a gap between this one and this one that was more than 5 pages. So then I went to the chapters I had here and I looked for a spot where I could add a twist or reversal or danger to keep up the pacing. And that's what I did. Then I added that bit in there. And so that's what I mean about this really helping me with visual representation, is I could visually see that I had a gap like that. And like just the way I used to do it in Scrivener, just listing everything out, I wouldn't have been able to see that. I wouldn't have been able to tell that I was missing that. Maybe I could if I was like really meticulous, but I probably wouldn't have noticed, to be honest. So this is really, really helpful to me. And so I think that's it for everything I have to show you on the Plottr interface. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off of this screen, and then I will join you again to very succinctly break down my pros and cons and to tell you whether I would recommend Plottr.
And we're back. So this is gonna be the formal review section where I'm gonna go through the pros and cons and who I'd recommend this to. And so I'm sure you would have noticed as I was going through and doing the little tour and all of that I kind of discussed some of these things. But for pros for Plottr, something that I would say is a pro is that I do find it to be fairly affordable considering other writing softwares. So I would say it's kind of got a comparable pricing to something like Scrivener, and it does have a lot of features, and so it didn't seem too bad to me in terms of pricing. Of course, it's not free, but I felt like it was really reasonable in terms of what the pricing is. And of course, something I love about Plottr and what I've loved the most about it is being able to have those separate plot lines, being able to have all those different plot lines and to see all of those and to see them in like different views. Like that little tiny dot view is super helpful and I absolutely love it. And so I think those are really, really amazing, like helpful features of it. I think that's the main wonderful feature about it, is that you are, if you are a person that's like really into plotting and planning and that sort of thing, this gives you the ability to do so much of that. Like this is the most meticulously I've ever plotted any book, but it's so helpful and it's really like alleviating a lot of anxiety for me and like thinking about drafting, because I have so much of this planned out, but I still have things that I can like play with in the chapters and those sorts of things. So I find that to be really helpful. The template feature is really cool, especially, you know, because you can create your own templates as well, which I appreciate. But it's also great to have other templates that are already there that you can explore, especially if they are including a sort of template that you are already using for your story structure. So that's really helpful. The cloud features, or not the cloud features, the backup features, so that you can always have a backup, which is very similar to Scrivener, I find. And another huge bonus of this is that all the information from Plottr can be exported to Scrivener or exported to Microsoft Word. So if you want to, after you're done all your plotting and all your character sheets and your places and etc., if you want to have that in Scrivener, you can export the whole thing to Scrivener. I just found that because I have 2 monitors, it's easier for me to just like put all that stuff on one monitor and then have my Scrivener on another monitor and just work with them those ways. I mean, that way, instead of like exporting and doing all of that, but that is a feature that's available if you want it. And another feature that's great here is like having those character sheets, like being able to have that and put in all those details and make your own templates. And like I love being able to visually see the character's face based on the image that I've put in and being able to filter by different characters you want to see. I think it's especially amazing that you have the ability, like you can pick different books in a series to see the different characters, which I think would be really helpful if you're working on a series and you're kind of like, who was that in book 1, or was that person in book 1, or were they only in book 2, and things like that. And the same with the places. And it's funny because when I got into this program, the place sheets and the character sheets were what I thought I would absolutely not use, because I was like, I don't really need those, like I already do that in Scrivener, like what is going to be better about this? But to me, what is better about it is the filtering capabilities, and also the fact that I can like tag those characters on my timeline in my chapters. So if I'm ever at a point of, you know, minute revision, or even like for traditionally published authors, when you're getting into copy edits and you're thinking like, wait, was this character in that chapter or in this chapter, or were they in both of those chapters, or things like that, like you can tag all of those characters and you can filter and you can search for them, which I think, or you can filter for them, which I think is really, really helpful in that case. The filtering is a big bonus. Like I showed that in the little demo, like being able to filter by the things that you want, so you're able to isolate and see certain things, I also think is really, really helpful about this program. And being able to also have your entire series in one file, so that you can just kind of pick and choose which book you want to plot. There's also the ability to see your entire series, but because I wasn't working on plotting a series, I didn't end up using that view, so I can't really speak to how that is. And now for the cons. So the cons of Plottr, the biggest con for me is setup. So I think it could be very easy to get frustrated doing the setup of this, because it does take a long time. So for me, learning the features and getting everything set up and figuring out how I wanted it to be the right way for me as a person for whom plotting and planning is the most fun part of the writing process, I thought it was super fun. I also like programs and software and like exploring those things, so I thought it was really fun to get all of this set up. But it takes a long time. Like it took me kind of like several days of trial and error to kind of figure out the best way that I wanted it. And so I do think like the fact that you have to do that setup in the beginning could be daunting to certain people. And it's kind of like, once you get it set up, it's great and you can roll with it and you can create your own template and you can keep using your own template and it's not a big deal. But I think that initial setup, that initial figuring out how this program is going to work for you, there is a curve in that way. And I think that's like kind of like Scrivener. Like there is a bit of a curve with Scrivener. Scrivener is a little bit easier because you can just like jump in and pretend it's a word processor like any other and do whatever you want and just type. But like at some point you want to start learning the features and learning all the different things that you can do. And I feel like Plottr is a little bit different because it's not just like a word processor, and so you can't just jump in that way, and so you have to figure out how you want to use it. A second con I will say is I don't think their template experience is like perfect. So when you make a template, like there are a bunch of things that aren't getting carried over, like the tags and things like that. And so for me, what I had to do, and I talked about this in the demos, I just made my separate template file and I used that instead of just using their own template. Also, another con for me is there's no side-by-side view in this program. So for example, if you were wanting to look at your character sheets and then also wanting to look at your timeline, there's no way that I could see. Maybe there is a way and I just didn't discover it, but there was no way that I could see for you to be able to see those things side by side. You have to look at one or the other. So either you're looking at the character sheet or you're looking at the timeline. There's no way to look at both of them. I think this could be solved with like if you did all of your character stuff first and then you exported it to Scrivener, and then you could have Scrivener in one window and you could look at them side by side. But it is a bit of a limitation to me. Like it would be great to have a sidebar where you could see your character in your places and you could also see your timeline while you're working on it, instead of having to kind of like jump back and forth. Because for me, when I'm planning chapters, things like that, I need to look at my character sheet and I need to know things about my character that I want to input. And so to me, that seemed like a limitation. Something I will also say is that I did notice some freezing and some crashing. It wasn't enough for me to like get frustrated and like rage quit or anything. And I do think it's a specific glitch because it seemed to happen whenever I was trying to delete a bullet point. Like if there was an empty bullet point and I tried to delete it, suddenly everything would freeze for a while. And so I think it was a specific glitch that they might fix in further updates. So I won't like get too into it, but it was something I noticed, so it seems like remiss to not mention it here. And my only last con to say is that it is really weird to me that they didn't have Save the Cat as a template already on there, but I feel like it's such an obvious structure to put on there that if they don't have it on there, there's probably a reason. Like maybe they weren't allowed or something like that. And so that was the only other thing that I thought was kind of like, I thought it was surprising, and then I had to go in and make my own template. And I know a lot of people use the Save the Cat structure, so like having to go in and make your own template and put in all those notes can be tedious to begin with. But I agree that that's part of the setup thing, is like that initial setup takes so much time to get it all ready and like good to go, but then after that it's much better. Who would I recommend this for? So I think this is best for people who love to plot things and love to plan things. I think you could use this if you were a headlights writer or you were a discovery writer, but I don't know that you would use the full breadth of the features much more that would like necessitate having a program like this instead of just using something like Scrivener or like sticky notes or something like that. It just seems like it wouldn't do so much more for you as a program. But I think if you are a plotter and you love planning things, I think if you're someone that wants like a series Bible, wants those capabilities, I think this is really, really good for that. I think it's a really powerful system. Like you don't need to have like as much stuff as I put on it, like, you know, 3-4 subplots and 3-4 red herrings and like a bunch of other additional plot lines to keep track of. You don't need to have as many as I do, but I think it's really helpful even if you just had like a couple subplots that you wanted to help keep track of, because it's really like wonderful, like to me, to be able to see all that. Like it's really changed the game for me. Like I will always be using Plottr to plot projects from now on, unless like it's like a short story, in which case I like don't have that many things to keep track of and it would be a little bit excessive. But like novels, like plotting novels, I will always use this from now on because it is so super helpful, and I feel like it's going to have me get like such a stronger draft the first time around. So I think this program is really for people who are wanting to do a lot of plotting. And I don't think that necessarily just means like fantasy and sci-fi authors that are going to have a lot of world building and things like that. I think this works really well also even for contemporary writers, just if you're going to have a lot going on, if you're going to have subplots that you want to keep track of, which if you have a novel, you're going to have subplots. It's just really helpful in that way. And so that's who I really think this is for, with the caveat that you need to be okay with having to spend some time setting it up the first time, because it's going to take you time to get that initial setup, to understand everything. Like I said, I'm going to be doing that like more extensive tutorial video probably, but also Plottr has their own YouTube channel, and I watched all those YouTube videos to see all the features and to learn all of those things. I just played them on 2x speed. It was like really simple to get into. It just has a bit of a learning curve. So I also think if you're the sort of person where you know it's going to be, you're like, no new friends, I don't want to try new things, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on setup, I don't think this is going to be for you, because you do have to invest that initial time in setup. But to me, that initial setup is so worth everything that comes with it once you have it ready. And I think it's going to be great even for revising, like, because I can, you know, transfer things into chapter summaries, or I can do something like that so that I can kind of see things. I can tag all the characters and places, and then like I said, it could be useful for things like copy edits or line edits and just like double checking all of those things. So I think it's definitely a really fantastic program. I'm glad I heard of it and discovered it, because I will be using it from now on. And so yeah, that's my entire review of Plottr, and I hope that was helpful to you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, let me know below and I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. Again, I tried this out for the review, so I'm not like a Plottr expert necessarily. So there may have been features that I didn't talk about or features that I missed or things like that. So I think there's always room to discover and learn more things about this program that I can probably find other ways to share as I learn more. But I think this was a good overview based on like, I guess like an average user, but potential average user's experience coming into it and trying to use the program for the first time. I think it's like Scrivener, like it's one of those programs where you might not necessarily know about every single feature. You just need to know enough for it to work for you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye.